This is a bit of a bombshell that dropped today from the NFL. 5 players, including 4 Lions players who have been suspended for various amounts of time because they were gambling. Now, the biggest name out of this, Perloff, is obviously Jameson Williams, who is the former first-round pick for the Lions. Now, his agency came out and said he did not bet on NFL games. Him and Stanley Berryhill, another wide receiver for the Lions, both got 6-game suspensions. So maybe read the tea leaves there. Perhaps both guys, both wide receivers for the Lions, 2 young guys, were betting using mobile betting sites, but were not betting on the NFL. That's right. Clearly a no-no when you are employed by the league.
Well, yes, except that the statement from the agent via Adam Schefter says that they were betting, but it was where they were betting. Right. They were betting inside the facility. So maybe you can bet NBA if you're...
You cannot place a bet inside an NFL facility.
Right, but you could bet NBA if
you are outside the facility. If you're in your own home or whatever, you can bet on a different sport.
Okay, that's a policy?
That is not illegal, but you can't bet on anything NFL related, not games, not the draft. Can you bet on the Pro Bowl? Sure, the Pro Bowl, whatever. There's no NFL, nothing that is affiliated with the NFL. You cannot bet on that. And these 2 guys made that mistake. 3 others, that's Quintez Cephas and CJ Moore, also from the Lions, got indefinite suspensions. They've already been released. So tells you what you need to know about how the Lions felt about them. And that was going to be a Calvin Ridley situation where he could appeal and apply for reinstatement after 1 full year. Add to it, Shaka Toney, he's kind of a bit of an outlier here, is a defensive end for the Washington Commanders. He was also found to be gambling. He's also suspended indefinitely. So that gives you a clue that they were probably betting on the NFL. The Commander said they're aware of it. We don't know if he's been released or not. It doesn't look like he has been.
Right. And obviously, on one level, you totally understand this. You cannot have the possibility of a player affecting the outcome of a football game, because then you lose the integrity of the entire sport.
You're WWE at that point. Like
you're veering towards, exactly.
You can't do that.
I think boxing, that probably happened a little bit. Could have happened in the NBA with Tim Donaghy, but it didn't. Now, everybody, though, you have to step back and say there's a hypocrisy here, because the NFL is, I know they're being strict about this, they have every right to be that, but you cannot ignore the fact that the NFL is getting money pumped into it by sports gaming companies. So they're saying, come on, please, everybody bet, everybody bet, everybody bet. But you guys who bet in even a non-NFL game, we're gonna take a lot of money from you. So I understand why they have to do it, but it's still, I don't like the whole picture of the way this is happening.
Okay, but here's the thing. You can't always get what you want, right? The players and the league both profit immensely off of this. All you have to do is not place a bet on football or anything football related, and not place a bet in the facility. That to me doesn't seem like too much to ask. If Jameson Williams wants to bet on the Pistons game that night, he can do it, but you can't do it in the facility. That's not exactly handcuffs around someone being such a dictatorship. This is just stupid. I mean, especially after Calvin Ridley got busted last year, why anybody would take a risk doing this while you're playing professional football, to me, is ridiculous.
Well, I think you might be ignoring the fact that gambling is a complicated phenomenon. It's not like, hey, imagine if there was a ban on alcohol. Guys would drink because it's a vice that you really can't resist. So couldn't you say, well, maybe instead of knocking this guy for a year, counseling, say, listen, and make it a public awareness thing of the dangers of gambling, because that's the issue here too, is that gambling is highly addictive activity. Costs a lot of people money. So maybe you could say, listen, we understand gambling is complicated. Maybe we'll try and help you with this.
Well, you can do that also. I mean, I imagine that the suspension is for the outward public, right? That is we are taking this seriously. And if we're going to be in bed with these gaming companies, then we obviously have measures in place where we're catching people who are placing bets. They geotag everything because gambling's not legal necessarily from one state to another. So they know where you're placing the bet. These sites have your social security number. You have to give it to them to sign up for these gambling sites. So they have to have the protections in place. And you have to be showing the public, hey, this is all on the level. Like, there's not someone with insider information who who's giving it out. Now, the NFL says that no games were compromised here.
Yeah, I can believe that.
I listen, they can't lie about that. The cover-up would be way worse than the crime if they lied about this. So I'm going to take them at their word.
Well, the only way you could prove a game was compromised is if you somebody bet against their team in a game in which they were playing, and that probably didn't happen. No, I think you would get a lifespan.
Yeah, you would.
If say Quentin Cephas bet $1 million that the Lions were going to lose, that's a whole different thing.
And he was on the field covering the other team's, whatever. Sorry, and he caught it and dropped a touchdown pass.
Or, let a punt go through his hit. I don't know if he was a punt returner, actually.
He's a wide receiver, so whatever.
He probably could have been a punt returner. I know he's a big special teams guy. So at least games were not compromised. I understand. After Calvin Ridley for a year, you had to know. Every NFL player has to know. But I do think gambling is tricky. You can't just say, oh, these are bad guys, let's kick them out for a year, because you have to realize when you're NFL, when you are partnering with a gambling company, you're taking a lot with that. So I would at least urge them to have some sympathy towards these players whose lives were just ruined by placing this bet that you're part of a gigantic advertising machine that we are too, that is pushing everybody to pick up their phone and make these bets. And, you said, oh, you bet an NBA game in the facility. Boom, let's take $15 million or whatever.
Yeah, see, you have a little bit more I do have sympathy for people who have issues with gambling. Of course I would, right? It's an addiction. Like any other that needs counseling. But I have a little bit less sympathy when it's, okay, yes, we are partners and we are advertising partners with these gambling sites, but you can't gamble. To me, that doesn't, maybe it's because I'm my vantage point, it doesn't seem like it's that big of a thing to give up. Like, I have the privilege of playing in the NFL or working for the NFL. It just means this one thing. I just can't bet on NFL games. That's the one thing. Like before, you couldn't smoke marijuana and play in the NFL when they used to drug test.
And did you think those suspensions were a bit harsh?
Well, yeah, but I personally never thought that smoking marijuana cut to the integrity of the game. Like, I understood that it's an illegal drug, but I never thought that cut at the integrity. Whereas the idea that a game could be fixed or insider information getting out or whatever to help you get an edge, that cuts at the fabric and the integrity of the game. Like, they say the NFL is too big to fail, to borrow from 2008, but it's too big to fail. But a gambling controversy would be the one thing that could bring it down.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it would bring it down because I think they can nip it in the bud. But here's the funny thing, too. Calvin Ridley, that's one figure we know, $1,500 in parlays.
Right.
I mean,
and one was bet on the Falcons to win. Right. And he was a member of the Falcons, but he wasn't with the team at the time.
Any defensive end, anybody in the league could have bet $400,000 with a legal bookie and have no problem whatsoever. So it's the new game. Yes, you're busting these guys for these little DraftKings bet, but 23-year-olds, first of all, their phone is attached to their hand.
Well, that's 33, 43, 50. We're all susceptible to that.
I think they're a little different. I mean, they are raised with literally, might as well be surgically, so everything is photographed. Yeah. Anyway, my point is that to them, probably doing a DraftKings bet is not a big deal. And like the guys who would really scare me are the ones who are $75,000 in the hole, $2 million in the hole to an illegal bookie. Sure. So, we pointed this out. When sports gambling became legal, it brought it above board, which is really good. But I just think, yes, this all makes sense, but the whole thing feels a little icky to me because of the NFL and gambling. And also, too, there could be real things happening that we have no awareness of. These guys are the innocent ones. They were stupid enough to go. If you're going to make a huge, if you're going to really screw over your team and throw a game for $500,000, you're not on DraftKings betting a parlay.
No, then you're basically like the subject of a documentary that's going to be coming out in a couple of years or something. If you're doing that, if you're really that in, you have a massive, massive problem. I don't know if these guys had a problem or have a problem, but I do know that I don't think it's too much to ask an active player or someone who works for the NFL, hey, don't bet on the NFL or don't bet while you're at the facility.
Okay, fair.
That's just like normal. Also, apparently, part of this investigation also found that several Lions staffers in various different departments were also found to be placing bets, and they all got dismissed.
Yeah, it's funny. I have some buddies who work for NFL.com, and they're very clear that they're not allowed to bet on NFL ever under any circumstance. again, just a little bit of hypocrisy there. But I get it. The rule has to be in place. I don't love it. I thought Calvin Ridley was too long. But, after that, if you get caught, and after this day, if you get caught, first of all, what kind of idiotic player would give I didn't know you had to give your social security number.
Yeah, but you usually do for signing up for both.
I remember you had to give your driver's license.
Yeah, maybe it was driver's license. I think it used to be social security number. It might have been driver's license now.
But how stupid. Why would you ever sign up for DraftKings if you really want to bet? Just do it illegally.
Well,
go offshore or something.
I know, but that's a little bit more involved. This is just so easy.
I know.
Download an app from the App Store. It's right there.
I'll just make I know I'm stretching this for the sake of argument, but you're a football player. You watch a lot of NFL Super Bowl ads. And you see Kevin Hart saying and Jamie Foxx saying, "This is so fun to bet. So fun to bet. So fun to bet." Maybe you're susceptible to that advertising, and you say, "Oh, you know what? This looks like fun. What's the harm if I bet on another team?"
Oh, if you do it at the facility, you could get popped because it looks like this geotagging. If that is indeed how these guys got caught, like we know, we can just use the Northeast for example. Like, there's different kind of bets that you can place in New Jersey than New York.
Right.
Different kind of bets that you can place in Pennsylvania than New York or whatever. So they know where you are. They know what state you're in.
But do they know?
Is it possible they were geotagged to the facility?
Yeah, I don't know.
Or was it, as a part of the investigation, somebody ratted somebody out? I was talking. So that's Allen Park, Michigan. Yeah, I guess I'm sure you could geotag to that spot, which is a little creepy, but true. But you can't sign up for that.
The funny thing is, I don't even care if Jameson bet on NBA from the facility. I'm not worried about that at all. The guys who got suspended for a year must have been betting NFL, and that's the real scary thing, right?
Absolutely. And I would just like more information. I mean, listen, I'll take the NFL at their word, okay, but to say that nothing was compromised and that no insider information was used, yet these guys, some of them were suspended indefinitely, at least for a whole year. Can I get some details? Like, was it Calvin Ridley style where there was a 5-team parlay and it just happened to be that he also bet on the Falcons in that 5-team parlay? Was it a little more? Like, I'd like the public to be able to decide how do what actually happened here? And a lot of this is about transparency. This is about gambling companies and going legal sports betting brings it all above board. So let's give it to us. What were the bets they were making?
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
You are allowed to bet on other sports?
Yes.
So what if an NFL player was a gambling addict and got it $5 million in the hole for NBA? I guess if you're on DraftKings, it doesn't matter because DraftKings is not going to turn around and ask you to throw a game.
No. DraftKings isn't knocking at your door at night with a baseball bet.
The fear isn't these guys are going to get in a hole, but it's still sort of you're definitely in that territory. Say there's an NBA gambling addict in the NFL, you'd think that'd make him more susceptible, especially if he's not online. That's how this happens, right?
Yeah, I guess, but that could happen in any era.
Yeah, and it did happen.
Yeah, and it has happened, but like that, the why I think this is actually something we're probably going to see a lot more now is just because of how easy it is.
Yeah,
like I wouldn't know where to find a bookie. I don't.
Really?
No, I don't.
College.
Okay,
I went to
college. I wasn't hanging out with bookies. I didn't know any bookies when I was in college. But I have a DraftKings and a FanDuel account. So
I wonder if these accounts have put a lot of bookies out of action. Probably.
I don't know.
The one thing with bookies is you don't have to pay tax. Oh, I mean, not me. You don't have to pay taxes. Well, I watched recently on Netflix. There's a documentary about Arizona State point shaving scandal, 1994.
Yeah.
So what happened was the guy liked to bet, and he got in a $50,000 hole, and it was like that. It was a snowball, Maggie. It was so subtle. Then he threw one game. One game became 2 games, became 5 games.
Yeah.
And then the FBI is like, wait, all of a sudden a line in a game moved against UCLA from 13. Basically, Arizona was -13 to -2 in 2 days. It shifted 11 points for no reason.
I mean, you're just basically putting a big spotlight on yourself.
But now with these now people are giving their driver's license, their social security number.
Yeah, they're going to find you.
So much easier to trace, unless it's off-board betting. But so they have to be harsh. But I do want to just point out that it does seem to me like the NFL, once again, is a little hypocritical.
Well, but the players make money off of this too. Because
I'm not saying against the players. I'm saying against the public. I mean, like the NFL, I don't care how they treat the players that much. I just think like the NFL can't be all high and mighty and then
turn around and take all
be
the money.
In this game, you know.
855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. This is funny. Brian Edwards is in the chat. If you want to watch the show, youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio is the way to do it. He said, to be honest, I don't care if pro athletes gamble at all as long as it's not on their own games. Okay, but see, here's the thing about that.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Okay,
so say, I totally disagree on that. Say you went to Alabama.
Yeah.
Say you're Brian Robinson. We had him on, right? I'm just going to pick him out of a hat because we looked it up, and he had a teammate on almost every single team in the NFL.
Right.
Like, from playing at Alabama, he basically had a teammate, a former teammate, on every single team in the NFL.
Right.
So even if he's not betting on his own game, it's okay for him to bet on another game where he knows people on both sides. So he would know who's got a foot injury. He knows who's going through a divorce. He knows who, broke their hand, all that stuff. He still has information, even if it's not his team. Through the network, he has information about other NFL players.
Well, I mean, listen, you can say if you're betting NBA, it's a lot of NFL players have the same agent as NBA players. I mean, they share agents. Will Levis went to Kentucky. Couldn't he just ask one of 55 Kentucky players?
No, don't you remember the basketball team and the football team hate each other at Kentucky?
I understand. Oh, right. Good point. I understand it's more direct there. But so the inside information, are they allowed to bet on college football?
Now, that's a good question. I bet they are. Because if you're allowed to bet on the NBA, why wouldn't you?
I have
but you're right.
Idea.
That's an interesting one.
So could you call your former coach and say what's going on?
Or not even the coach. That's probably a little high up on the food chain. Probably call the trainer.
Or your former teammate.
Former teammates. Hey, how's this person doing?
You know what?
Slippery slope.
Maybe they do ban college football, or they should at least, now that we figured that out. You know what? I think your first point, the NFL has some explaining to do. Keep all these rules. When you suspend a guy for a year, tell us what happened.
Yep.
Keep it all in front of everybody. Otherwise, we're just going to start to worry and go down a road that really we don't need to.